Mr. Martin Keown, last time I saw you out and about was up in Newcastle. Not long before Newcastle took to the field against your beloved Arsenal. And you and Joe Cole were in your television position right at the main entrance of St James's Park. And I was taken by that because you were virtually right in amongst the supporters there who were gathering pre-kickoff. Some Arsenal, mostly Newcastle. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it was all very good humoured, wasn't it?
Very, very warm, the fans from Newcastle, you have to say. It's not like that everywhere, though. And I think we're going to talk about Roy Keane experiencing, choice language, shall we say, from people that are around about you. And it's when you're in a stadium, Jim, when it's full, and I suppose we're fair game, people shout and abuse, but suddenly when it starts to exit out and there's very few people there and it becomes more personal.
Yeah.
And maybe that was the issue for Roy, but I suppose really you're always in a public situation, the cameras are there, and people will enjoy poking fun at you. It is difficult to know how to react, but it's best just to stonewall it, as you probably have done, Jim, many times over the years.
Yes. I've tried my best. Sometimes it's tough. But you're right. Roy Keane was involved in an argument with an Ipswich fan after the match yesterday. Ipswich drawing, of course, with Manchester United. But it's a good point you make, though, Martin. Keane, remember, managed Ipswich from 2009 to 2011. Now, after the supporters shouted at Roy, Roy approached him, exchanged words, and then I think it was relatively audible, invited the fan to, quotes, wait in the car park before the individual was led away by security staff. I mean, I think the question is, Simon, it's down to Roy, and we know what Roy's like. He would never be backward in terms of going forward. Should he engage with the individual like that, Simon? When it's in full gaze.
I mean, it's easy to say what people should and shouldn't do unless you're put in that situation. I don't think someone should be offering somebody out. No, I don't. I think there's a better way to handle it. But notwithstanding that, it doesn't entitle people to say precisely what they want. But intimidation is all relative. Some people, saying boo to a goose makes people intimidated. Other people are more robust. Roy, I would suspect, is on the robust side of things. He probably didn't like the observation of his abject failure at Ipswich being reminded of him whilst he was opining on everybody else's successes and failures, which is his job on television to do these days.
Yeah.
And so with that in mind, I think there's a balance to be struck.
Each club does it differently, though, Simon. So you can be in a ground. Some grounds they just sort of police everybody away, take everyone away, so there isn't really going to be the opportunity for a fan to have a go. Maybe it could be stewarded in a lot better way. That's something maybe they could look at. Ipswich might want to review that and see, okay, do they really want that sort of incident? Is it really too much? Sometimes you're trying to do a programme, and people shouting stuff at you.
Where did it happen? Where did the incident happen?
Pitchside at Ipswich.
Pitchside.
At the end of it, presumably just at the mouth of the tunnel, where they moved towards the end of the game to do their post-match stuff.
I mean, none of us know precisely what was said.
No.
And the question is at which point should a pundit be immune from critical observations, and what is considered to be a critical observation which is beyond the pale? If Roy Keane decides that someone criticising his tenure, because clearly it's an Ipswich Town fan reminding him of the potential abject failure that he had at Ipswich Town, and he's taking exception to that, because obviously he's the only person that can point out other people's abject failures. So if we're now saying that's off the table, because it can't be off the table. I get criticised for things that I say on this radio show. You do. You get criticised as a presenter, as a player, as an owner, as a manager. It's the nature of the beast. It's the emotive investment that goes into this sport, which makes it the biggest sport in the world, which is why 5 billion people around the world watch it.
Exactly.
Look, Roy doesn't need defending. He's big enough to do that himself. But when someone is bellowing, a load of tripe in your direction, it can be a little bit
but that's
tricky.
Normally Monday to
but I suggest you just stonewall it. You just have to do it. In fact, I get a lot of people asking me at the weekend, how the hell do I put up with Simon Jordan?
Right.
Have you in your guise as a pundit, have you A, experienced something like this, Martin, and B, have you responded to it?
No. As I say,
never responded to it.
I say never, but I'm not going to go across and make a scene. It's one of those, you just draw attention to it, and that's the thing. Then the guy gets the publicity that he's looking for. But Simon's right. Actually, if you're going to criticize people take these things seriously, don't they? Take it personally. There'll be fans who are listening in today think that we're having a go at their club, we're having a go at Man City. It's a joke. They've only lost 5 games in the last 5 years, but we're not doing it. We're just being honest.
Yeah.
And I suppose what you want is respect.
It's also
so if you're standing there, Simon, you want a little bit of respect, and it's a bit unnecessary when someone's trying to sabotage the
You want to try
programme.
standing in the stadium, paying the wages of Herberts like you, getting screamed at by fans because ultimately you guys aren't performing very well on the pitch. Try that suit for size. But
I never wore that suit because I gave value for money at every club I was at.
That's fantastic, but you've never
I'd like
been.
to think I did.
The bottom line is it comes with the territory. You bake it into your thinking. The challenge is this little rarefied special world of football where football people are special. And they're not allowed to be criticised. They're not allowed to be taken to task. They're not allowed to be put in their place. I'm reminded of the fact that in the great scheme of things, they ain't that important, including Roy Keane, who I happen to think is a brilliant pundit, and I enjoy watching him because he most of the time calls it for what he sees it, good or bad. Yeah. So I have respect for that. But there is this idea, like, you know, the expressions that are now used, I used it earlier on, taking the mickey out of it. We've got to suffer. You don't know what suffering is. Suffering is what other people do outside of football in the real world.
It's a terminology.
I know, but it's used in football terms as we're going to suffer.
But he's right though, Martin, isn't he? I mean, Roy Keane will be laughing at this, no doubt. You would be laughing at it. I, on many occasions, have laughed at some of the things that have been shouted at me. By and large, some of them have been true. But I
shouldn't have done them.
And you shouldn't have done them from distance. But I have laughed at it. Do you ever say no to being positioned at any certain location by a television company? I'm thinking like Tottenham.
I think there might be the situation. They do think about it. Obviously, they're on the halfway line there, so they're thinking it's not going to be an issue. You don't want to go in the main end, do you? Would you go to the main road and stand out, Ellen Road, and stand at the away fans if they're going to, you might be fair game or be seen as fair game. So they position you in the right place within a stadium. One wouldn't have expected it, would they, at Ipswich in that particular place of the ground?
It's a shocking lack of duty of care from Ipswich Town. They have put Roy Keane in the way of criticism. Yeah. And they should be castigated for it. It's a duty of care. It's welfare. It's pundit welfare.
I would think the guy, if he had any sense, went nowhere near the car park to hang around.
He's all mouth and trousers, Keane.
And wait for Roy Keane. He'd better employ letting Roy just exit the stadium.
It's not about Roy Keane, it's about the current day players.
One would presume, though, Martin, it's about probably Roy's time at the football club. And maybe that fan decided to dig him out about something. Because there's precious little to shout at Roy after Ipswich won, Manchester United
Roy
won.
has demonstrated he's a far better pundit than he was a manager.
Than he was a manager?
It's a bit strong.
Well, I'm just telling you.
That was quite strong.
I'm telling you. He was a great player.
You might get offered
not a great
for
manager.
You might get offered out to join Roy in the car park after that one.
We are also...
No, take the tickets for that.
Take the train home.
We must remember the fact that Roy was assaulted whilst at Arsenal.
True.
The gentleman's club. So there is a line, and irrespective of whether Ipswich fans think it's appropriate to remind him of his failings as their manager, and he has to get on with that.
Yeah.
There's a duty of care then from the stewards, isn't it, to marshal that
exactly.
situation. They're trying to create TV. The clubs are getting a lot of money for that.
If the guy gets into Roy Keane's face and physically intimidates him, that's something different, which is what happened at Arsenal.
Right.
If someone shouts some hurty opinions, well, just
with
get on
abuse,
with it.
maybe the guy should be led away.
Yeah. Roy wasn't as lucky as you, Martin, on that train when these two old ladies came to your rescue.
Do you remember that? Beat an old lady in a situation.
Like two old women in the Dick Emery show.
Spurs fans, Man United fans, it wasn't welcome anywhere on that train.
One of them protected you by swinging a handbag at
100%.
the nasty assailants who were having a go at you. Do you know that's Arsenal Invincible, Martin Keown? Back off, said 84-year-old. Anyway, well done.
No winter fuel allowance.
Exactly. Roy, if you're listening, I'm sure you're none the worse, and well done for fronting it up. But car park, no. I don't think we wanted to see it go that far.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.